Hi, I'm Mark Cohen. I'm the founder of online money guide, Money Sherpa, and we need an online money guide because money worries are the single biggest source of anxiety in Ireland today. Not crime, not health, not even housing. Money worries. But being money smart can help. 1 in 10 of us struggle with money. 33% of adults have no savings, and over 50% of us have no retirement savings. But survey after survey on financial literacy proves that there's a strong link between being financially literate and the outcomes that you get in your finances. And that's why, with our partners, we developed the Money Smart program. So there are 3 steps to the program. We've kept this simple so people can follow along a step at a time. The first is to get money fit. The second is to pay down your debt. And the third is to put by some savings for an emergency. The first step is really important because it is the gateway to the other steps. It gives you the money to pay down your debt, and it gives you the money to save. So we're going to turn to that first. So getting money fit. What is it exactly? Well, put simply, we like to think of it as dieting in reverse. So in dieting, you let as little calories in as you possibly can, and you look to use as many calories as you possibly can. In getting money fit, you actually try and get as much money in as you possibly can, whilst letting as little money out as you possibly can. So there's a couple of steps to that. So let's start with getting more money in first. So there's actually 3 main ways that you might do that. The first is simply to earn more income. The second is to pay less taxes. And the third is to claim more allowances. And we're going to walk through those step by step. So in terms of earning more income, we recently did a survey across Ireland of how people had changed their behaviours in the last 6 months due to the cost of living crisis. And quite a lot had done a number of activities to help them earn more income. Over 21% of us have looked to work longer hours as a result of the cost of living crisis. A number of us have done a series of other things, such as renting out rooms or maybe developing a second role. And then 4% of us have already asked for a pay rise or changed their jobs. And that is perhaps surprisingly low. We have the tightest job market in a decade. There is a lot of power with employees over employers at the moment. So one of the key things that we can do, and people are reluctant to do this and should do this more, is do the research about what the market rate is for your job. Potentially even apply for another job, get that job, and then approach your current employer and see if you can get the money that you deserve. Just have a grown-up conversation. You're worth a certain amount in the market today. Make sure you get it. And if you don't get it, if you've applied to the other job and you've got the other job, then you can simply walk away and change jobs and earn what you deserve to be earning. So after you've maximized the income coming in, the second step is to make sure that you give as little of that to the taxman as you possibly can. So there are 2 ways that you can do that. The first is by maximizing your tax credits. So the biggest one of those is the marriage credit. There is actually a financial advantage of being married in the Irish state. So if you're living with your partner, you may not actually be earning as much of a tax credit as you could. Now, it's not the most romantic reason to get married, but there's certainly a financial reason that you might want to look at that. Home care allowance, a lot of people don't realize if you're staying at home caring for somebody else, whether it is a child or whether it is an incapacitated adult, then there is an allowance against that where you will not pay tax on that of 1,700 a year. And finally, rent credit, and this is a new one. If you are renting for both 22 and 23, you can actually get a 500 tax credit. Now, tax credits very simply, that just simply means you do not pay tax on that amount. So if you get a rent credit of 500, that means 500 into your pocket. The other big area is tax allowances. A lot of people know already about medical expenses, that you can claim your medical expenses, and if you're on the 20% tax band, and indeed if you're on the 40% tax band, you'll get relief on those. So you'll get 20% of those expenses back. But what a lot of people don't realize is work expenses are claimable. They know perhaps that if you hand in the receipts, you can claim that, but also there are a number of flat rate expenses. So if you are hospital staff, bar staff, bricklayer, vets, there's a very long list of about 50 applications that's available on the revenue site. You are able to claim back tax relief with no receipts, no proof that you actually expended money. You're entitled to that money back. So that's definitely worth a look at, and look at your profession and see if that's something that you can claim relief on. And finally, the rent-a-room scheme. There's 100% of your income on the rent-a-room scheme is entitled for tax relief up to 14,000 a year. That's incredibly generous, and the reason for that is the government are looking for ways to relieve the housing crisis. So the rent-a-room scheme, they're really trying to encourage people by giving them a very extreme form of tax relief. So if you are renting out a room, that's a possibility. If you're looking to boost your income, like we talked about previously, then renting out a room is a really tax-efficient way to do it. The motto here is try and pay as little tax as you can legally. And there's lots of reliefs, so do your investigation and make sure you get all the reliefs that you're entitled to. The next thing is claiming allowances. So a lot of people are a bit shy about claiming allowances, and in our work with people and NGOs, we've discovered that people are reluctant sometimes to claim what they're entitled to. But if you are entitled to it, then you are entitled to it, and you should claim it. That's what it's there for. So there are a certain number of universal payments that we all get, such as the energy credits, which are at 600 per household. There are also social insurance payments. So if you've paid what's known as your stamp over time, then there are a number of payments that are not means tested. So even if you are quite well off, you will be able to claim those under your stamp, and you should investigate what those are. On Citizens Information actually is probably the best website for that. There are then some means tested payments. So if you've not paid your stamp, there are a number of payments that you may be entitled to. If your income is under 33,904 euros a year, depending on how many children you have, but roughly around that mark, then there is a top-up called the working family payment, which will top up 60% of the difference between that income level and your own income. For example, if you've got 2 kids, for example, and it's different rates depending on how many children you have. There's a carer's allowance, which is kind of the equivalent of the tax relief that we talked about earlier. So if you are not earning enough money, you are able to get that as an actual benefit. And then, of course, there's the fuel allowance, which is up to 1,324 if you're entitled for it. Again, do the research. There are an awful lot of benefits. It is quite a lot of work to understand what the situation is. But if you look on the Citizens Advice website, you can Google that, find out what social benefits are available, and claim the ones that you're entitled to. Okay, so we've made some progress in terms of getting money in on the first half of our Getting Money Fit program. So that's like cutting the calories. So now we're going to move across to seeing how many calories we can burn by reducing the amount of spend, letting less money out. So the first area, there are two areas here essentially in terms of letting less money out. The first thing is we can simply buy less, so cut down on our use. And the second is we can buy for less. So what that is you're just getting more bang for your buck. Again, we surveyed the population of Ireland in the last 6 months to understand how people had reacted to the cost of living crisis. And the most popular thing was 33% of us almost said that they were actually buying less as a result. Also, interestingly, 28% of us said that they were shopping smart. Overall, when we tot up the impact of this for an average family, by doing both, you can save over 11,000 euros a year. So there is a lot here that can make a real difference to the number of pence in your pocket. So the first, in terms of simply buying less, there are three things here that are the big hitters. The first is to ditch the credit cards. Interestingly, the research shows that having a credit card or having your phone enabled with your credit card makes you much more likely to spend than in good old-fashioned cash. In fact, 12 to 18% more likely to spend if you're paying through the credit card than if you got your money out of the cash machine. So the first tip here is simply to go back to getting your money out in cash, and you'll find that you're spending 15 to 20% less just in terms of that disposable spend. Second thing is takeaway meals and coffees. The Irish average spend on these is really significant. So the average family spends over 1,000 a year on takeaways, plus around 1,875 a year on coffees and sandwiches. So if you can kind of halve the takeaway meals and coffees, that's 1,500 for the average family back in your pocket. And then finally, I have to mention it, the fags and the booze. Every year, in living memory, the Exchequer has put up the cost of cigarettes and put up the cost of drink. And that makes it incredibly expensive for what you get. If you were able to get rid of cigarettes for the average family and half the amount of booze, that would be 3,232 euros back in your pocket. Altogether, those three things for the average family are just over 6,000 euros. The other item that's really become a big ticket item over the last 6 months due to the war in Ukraine is energy costs. These three tips actually can make a big difference to your energy use and really simple to implement. So the first one is simply turn down the thermostat. So 1 degree is the equivalent to 260 a year. So if you can heat the human, put on more clothes, and pop down the thermostat instead of heating the home, then you can save about 260 a year. You should be targeting your thermostat to be set between 18 degrees and 21 degrees maximum. Similar tip here is if you can turn down your boiler. So if you put your boiler down to about 50 degrees, then that saves 130 a year. Most boilers are set between 60 and 70 degrees. The skin burns if it's over 44 degrees. So pop the boiler back down to 50 degrees. You should save about 130 a year. Finally, in terms of energy consumption, then if instead of using an electric oven, you switch to an air fryer or micro, you can save a packet. So an electric oven costs around €1 per day. It's about 360 a year. An air fryer or a microwave is between 16 and 9 cents a day. So it's much cheaper if you can cook your food using an air fryer or a microwave than over an electric oven. Put all together, there's about 620 euros of savings there. And what I like about these is just popping down the thermostat or popping down the boiler is just something that you can do tonight, and you can start saving a bit of money on those energy costs. And of course, the other great thing here is you're also helping save the environment at the same time. So that's the tips in terms of buying less. What about buying for less? Well, essentially, there's three big hitters here that I just want to share with you. The first is switching your mortgage. That's worth 2,650 per year on average. So over 200,000 people can save that amount. So it's definitely worth checking out whether you can save. Maybe have a chat to a mortgage broker. Most of them are free. Check out the ones that are free to use to switch your mortgage. Um, and also check that they have all providers, that they're able to get access all lenders. Have the chat. It could be worth, on average, it's worth 32,000 over the mortgage term, 2,600. So it can make a huge difference if you have a mortgage to your overall financial outcomes. This one's a little bit smaller, but it's a quick one. So if you switch your broadband and TV, that can be worth 300 a year. So Sky Sports and Now TV Sky and Now TV are actually the same company, but they work under two different brands. If you flip from getting your TV from the satellite to over the internet via Now TV, you get exactly the same channels, but it's about half the cost. In fact, it's slightly less than half the cost. So you still get your Sky Sports, get it via Now TV, and that's £25 a month, €25 a month, sorry, versus €59 a month. So it's a hell of a difference. Finally, and most people do know this already, I know, but some people are still spending money outside of the German discounters. So switch to Lidl and Aldi. On average, they're 33% cheaper. The average family in Ireland spends 5,000 a year on groceries. So if you switch your shop, that can be worth 1,664 euros. So just shopping smarter there is worth around 4,600 euros in total. As I've mentioned several times, these numbers are based on the average family. So if you want to work out exactly what the savings are for your own family, then you can just pop over to moneysherpa.ie, scroll down on the homepage, and you'll see there's a button for the inflation savings calculator. So what you can do there is you can just simply check out the profile for your family. Do you already shop in Aldi, whatever it is? What is your energy bill? And then that will simply calculate your savings for you. And you'll be able to work out how much you save for your own particular family, because obviously all the figures that I've quoted so far are about the average family, and every family in Ireland is very different. So that's step one. Now that is by far the biggest step. If you can get money fit, you've then freed up hopefully enough money to move on to the second step, which is paying down your debt. So debt on its own costs 2,700 per annum on average for the average household. The average household owns 8,000 on loans and credit cards. So they are short-term, high-interest debt. And we have the fourth highest interest rate on our debt in Europe at 10.3%. So that means we're paying €824 per year simply on interest payments. And of course, the thing about interest payments is they compound. So although you're spending 824 in year one, if you don't pay that down, you're spending 824 plus the interest on the capital and the interest. So that's 909 the next year. So you're paying 1,733. And then in year three, you're paying 1,733 plus 1,003, which is the interest on the capital and the interest as well. So this kind of gets bigger and bigger. We talk about this as the debt snowball. As it rolls down the hill, it picks up more and more snow, it picks up more and more money, and it can engulf you a little bit like an avalanche. So your number one priority, as soon as you get money fit, is to pay down that debt so that you don't give all that money back in interest rates to the banks. Once you've done that, then you're in a position actually to start to put some money by, hopefully. So what we look to do is to create a rainy day fund. What we do not want to be doing is you clear your debt and then something comes along, the car breaks down, or there's an unexpected health expense or whatever it may be, and then you have to take out a short-term loan, you get back into the cycle of paying unnecessary debt. So what we look to do is get a about 2 months of your outgoings gradually saved up over time. Then once you've built up your emergency fund, there's one last thing to do, and that's starting to provide for your pension. So this is kind of a form of self-care, essentially. This is providing for your future self. A pension is a fantastic way to save efficiently because you're putting that money away and the taxman can't touch it. So for every euro you save, you actually get a bonus. So the tax free savings amount in Ireland on a pension is 7,700 per year. That actually means you get the equivalent of 9,624 into your pension. So effectively, the taxman gives you about 2,600, about 2,000 euros as a top up to your pension. And over 20 years, that's worth almost 200,000. If you then putting down by your 7,700, the taxman's topping that up to 9,600. If you then take that money and put it in pretty safe set of investments that give you an interest rate of 4%, that'll be worth 300,000 over 20 years. So that really could set you up for life and make you feel very good about your financial position and your family's financial position. So, just want to summarize the 3 steps there before we finish up. The first one is to get money fit. There's 12,000 a year more in savings there for the average family. You can check out your own savings on the moneysherpa.ie website. You can get more money in, about 2,000 a year, by using the techniques that we talked about earlier in the video. You can also let a lot less money out by buying smart or using less. That's over 11,000 a year, combining to be about 12,000. Once you're getting that extra money in, then the first thing to do is not to splurge it, but to pay down any debts, any short-term high-interest debts that you have. Mortgages usually slightly lower, so they're less of a concern, but revolving credit card debts that are left every month, they're building up, and that's just leaking money. And you want to plug a hole in that leak as soon as you can. And then finally, once you've paid down your debt, build up an emergency fund. On average, that should be about 6,000 euros based on the average family outgoings per month, and start a pension fund. Ideally, if you want to shelter as much away from the taxman as possible, you want to be putting 7,700 by per year. So hopefully those tips might help. Conscious that's not all the information that you will need, but it may start you on your money journey. We've got a load of resources on the moneysherpa.ie site. There's also some great information on citizen information, on revenue, and particularly on MABs. If you are struggling with debt, mabs.ie is a great place to look. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, you can put some comments in the chat or on the webpage that we've hosted this video on. Thanks a lot, and look forward to talking to you again.